In 1878, 42 men died screaming inside a cave in northern Arizona. 50 years later, someone built a town on top of it. A gas station, a zoo, a curio shop selling their bones to tourists. And one by one, the buildings burned. The owners were ruined, maimed, killed. For 100 years, this stretch of desert has refused to let anyone profit from it. This is the story of two guns, and the death cave underneath it that never stopped collecting. 30 miles east of Flagstaff, the high desert simply stops. The flat scrubland runs for miles dead level, and then the ground tears open into a gorge 200 feet deep, a jagged wound in the earth the Spanish named Canyon Diablo, the Devil's Canyon. It is a hard, waterless place. In summer, the heat comes off the rock in waves. In winter, the wind cuts down the gorge like a blade. For most of human history, this was country you crossed as fast as you could and never ever stopped in. But the canyon has a secret. Down below the rim, hidden in a fold of limestone, there is a cave, a long, low chamber that runs back into the dark, with a second opening higher up that lets the air move through it. For thousands of years, almost no one had any reason to go inside. It was just a hole in the rock at the bottom of a canyon nobody wanted. That changed in the summer of 1878. In a single night, that cave became a tomb, and it gave this anonymous stretch of Arizona a name that has outlived every road, every railroad, and every town anyone has ever tried to build on top of it. To understand what happened in that cave, you have to understand the country it sat in. In the 1870s, this was a borderland, the frayed edge between the Navajo, who ranged the high desert to the north and east, and bands of Apache who moved through the canyons and mountains to the south. These were not peaceful neighbors. For generations, they had raided each other. Horses, sheep, captives, revenge for the last raid, and the one before that. It was a cycle older than any of the men living inside it. The Apache who used Canyon Diablo were fast, hard, and expert at vanishing. They knew every wash and cave and hidden trail, and they used that knowledge to strike and disappear before anyone could mount a pursuit. The Navajo lived in more settled camps, with families and flocks that couldn't run. That made them targets. And in the spring and summer of 1878, the raiding got worse, bloodier, more personal. Somewhere in that escalating cycle of attack and reprisal, a single raid finally pushed the Navajo past the point of tracking a few stolen horses. This time, they came to finish it. The story the Navajo carried down the generations begins with a raid on two of their camps. A band of Apache swept in, and when they left, families were dead and livestock was gone. But this raid crossed a line. According to the accounts, the dead included women and children, and that turned a routine reprisal into something colder and more determined. The Navajo gathered a war party and set out on the trail, and this time they did not turn back after a day. They followed the tracks across the open country, down toward the gash of Canyon Diablo, reading the ground the way their enemies did. And then, near the canyon, something strange happened. The trail, clear, obvious, easy to follow, simply stopped. The Apache raiders, with all their stolen horses, seemed to have walked off the face of the earth. There were no tracks leading out, no dust on the horizon, nothing. To a lesser tracking party, it would have looked like witchcraft, but the Navajo didn't believe the Apache had vanished. They believed they were close, very close, and hiding. So they spread out along the canyon rim, and they listened. And what gave the Apache away was the thing that was keeping them alive, their breath. It was warmth in the cold desert night that betrayed them. Somewhere along the canyon, the Navajo felt it, a faint rise of heat, and the smell of smoke leaking up out of the ground. The Apache had gone underground. They had taken the horses and themselves into the hidden cave in the canyon wall, sealed the low entrance behind brush, and were waiting in the dark for the hunt to pass them by. But a fire needs air, and air moves. That warm breath, seeping up through the cracks in the limestone, told the Navajo exactly where their enemies were. And here the Navajo made a decision that would haunt the place forever. They did not go in after them into the dark, where a cornered man with a rifle holds every advantage. Instead, they gathered dead wood and dry brush, piled it against the mouth of the cave, and set it alight. Then they fed it. The fire roared at the entrance, and the smoke and heat rolled back into the chamber with nowhere else to go. The men trapped inside cut the throats of their own horses and tried to build a wall of the carcasses against the smoke. It wasn't enough. When the fire finally burned down and the Navajo went in, they found them all. Some 42 Apache dead in the dark. What the Navajo did next tells you how they understood the thing that had happened. They did not celebrate it as a clean victory. They stripped the dead of anything useful, and then they closed the cave. And they left, and they did not come back. The place had become wrong. In the years that followed, it carried names in more than one language, and they all pointed at the same idea. This was the Cave of Death, a place where dozens of men had died in terror, and their spirits had never been released. To the people who knew the story, it was not a landmark. It was a wound in the world, and you left it alone. For decades, that is exactly what happened. The canyon kept its distance from the modern world. Even when the railroad came through in the 1880s, laying track just up the way, the cave stayed quiet and mostly forgotten, a dark mouth in the rock that the local Navajo would not go near. The dead were left to their silence, and they might have stayed that way, except that America was about to do the one thing guaranteed to disturb them. It was about to build a highway straight through the Devil's Canyon and turn the whole cursed place into a business. In the 1920s, the country was falling in love with the automobile, and a new kind of road was being stitched across the Southwest. Route 66, the Mother Road, running from Chicago all the way to the California coast. It cut right through northern Arizona, right past Canyon Diablo. And where a highway goes, money follows it. Thirsty, tired travelers in overheating cars needed gas, water, food, a place to stretch their legs and buy a souvenir. Every few miles along Route 66, someone threw up a trading post or a filling station to catch that passing trade. Canyon Diablo, with its dramatic gorge and its Wild West name, was a natural place to stop. A crossing was built, a little cluster of buildings went up on the west rim, and the spot took the name Two Guns. In the beginning, it was an ordinary roadside outpost, but an ordinary gas station makes ordinary money. The men who came to Two Guns wanted more than that. They wanted a reason for cars to pull off the road, park, and open their wallets. An attraction, and there was one right there, waiting in the canyon wall below them. All they had to do was be willing to sell it. The man most tangled up in the legend of Two Guns was a character who called himself Chief Crazy Thunder. Real name Harry Miller, and he was not Apache, not Navajo, not native at all. He leased the land at Two Guns and set about turning it into a spectacle. He built stone buildings, a trading post, a zoo stocked with desert animals, mountain lions, bobcats, snakes, Gila monsters, pacing in cages for the tourists. And for the main event, he went down into the canyon and opened up the Apache Death Cave. He cleared it out, strung electric lights along the walls, built walkways and put up signs, and he charged admission to walk through the place where those 42 men had died. The stories say he went further than that he took the human bones still in the cave and sold them, and the Apache relics with them, as souvenirs to people who had no idea what they were buying. The local Navajo were appalled. They told Miller plainly that he was desecrating a grave, that the dead in that cave had never been at peace, and that no good would come to a man who made a carnival of it. Miller, by every account, laughed them off. Business was good, and then slowly the bill began to come due. The misfortunes at Two Guns started small, and then stopped looking like coincidence. One of the mountain lions Miller kept in his zoo turned on him and mauled him badly. He was bitten by one of his own Gila monsters, a slow, sickening venom that nearly killed him. He was caught in a flash flood roaring down the canyon, and the trouble wasn't only in his own flesh. Miller fell into a bitter feud with the man who actually held the lease on the land, a dispute over money and property that turned poisonous. And in the fighting, a man ended up dead, and Miller walked away ruined even where he wasn't charged. His name became bad luck. Everywhere he turned at Two Guns, the place seemed to take something back from him. To an outsider, it was a run of terrible luck falling on a reckless man who kept dangerous animals and picked dangerous fights. But to the Navajo who had warned him, there was nothing random about it at all. He had opened the death cave. He had sold the dead. And the dead, they said, were simply answering. Whatever you believe, one fact is beyond dispute. From the moment two guns turned that cave into a business, the place began to burn. Fire is the thread that runs through the whole history of Two Guns. Again and again, over decades and through a string of different owners, the town caught fire and burned. Someone would buy the place, pour money into it, rebuild the trading post and the station and the cabins, get the tourists flowing again, and then it would go up in flames and they would walk away broke. It happened to Miller's operation. It happened to the men who came after him. Two guns would rise and two guns would burn, over and over, as if the ground itself would only tolerate it for so long. The worst of it came in 1971. By then, Two Guns had been rebuilt yet again, a modern stop with a big new gas station and a garage serving travelers off Interstate 40. And it burned. A fire so complete that it gutted the place down to blackened concrete and twisted steel. That time, nobody brought it back. The tourists had other places to stop. The old road was fading, and the will to fight the canyon one more time was finally gone. Two Guns was left to the wind and the sun. Whatever had been collecting its debt out there had at last collected in full. Drive Interstate 40 today, between Winslow and Flagstaff, and you can still pull off at the Two Guns exit. What you find is the corpse of a town. Roofless stone shells, scorched black by the last fire, and covered now in graffiti. The empty concrete pit that once held the mountain lions. The word painted on its wall for tourists who are 80 years gone. A collapsing station, a broken bridge, foundations disappearing back into the scrub. And below it all, in the wall of the canyon, the cave, quiet again, dark again, its lights and walkways long rotted away. Ignored by the millions of people who blow past on the interstate at 70 miles an hour with no idea what's down there. The Navajo never doubted what the place was. Some things, they say, cannot be turned into a roadside attraction. You can build over the dead. You can string lights in their grave and sell tickets and sell their bones. But you cannot make them pay rent. And every wall that burned at Two Guns was the ground reminding the living, one more time, exactly whose land this really was. The road moved on. The town is gone. The cave is still there, and it is still waiting.